Hey guys, tonight we're traveling way back to the golden banks of the Nile, where the sun rises hot and early. And you, unfortunately, are not a pharaoh, not a priest, not even a skilled artisan. You're a servant, a house servant, which means today is going to be long hot and filled with dust you'll never quite get out of your nose. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. If you're still awake, hit that button now before an ancient Egyptian sacred cow shows up to ask what useful thing you've done today. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. Let's see how far this journey through ancient Egypt really stretches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun does. It's still dark. Just a thin sliver of silver light creeping over the dusty horizon. But your eyes snap open the moment your body registers the oppressive warmth already gathering in the air. A fly buzzes past your ear. Another lands on your cheek. You swat it lazily, but it's no use. They've declared this little mud brick hut their kingdom, and you're just the tenant. Your sleeping mat is made of tightly woven reeds, uneven in all the wrong places, and as you sit up, you feel the crunch of sand in your back. You wonder, as you do every morning, how the sand got inside your tunic again. Probably while you slept. Probably always while you sleep. Your hut is shared. Of course, you live alongside 3 other house servants, 2 men and 1 older woman, who talks in her sleep and steals your water ration when she thinks no one's looking. You stretch. Your muscles ache from yesterday's tasks, but you already know today won't be any lighter. Outside, the roosters have started scraggly things with more attitude than feathers. The sky is turning pale pink, and the tops of the palm trees sway gently in the breeze, mocking you with their effortless cool. You grab your sash and tie it tightly around your waist. Your work tunic is coarse linen, dyed slightly from sweat and sun, and who knows what else. You splash a little water on your face from the clay jar in the corner. It's lukewarm, gritty, and tastes faintly of dust, but it'll do. The door opens, and the head servant pokes his head in. Up, he grunts. No name, no greeting. Just the universal sound of obligation. You nod and follow him out. The air outside is deceptively soft, still, early, still kind. You know it won't last. The estate is waking. Birds call from the papyrus thickets along the irrigation channels. The oxen are lowing in their pens. And you've got approximately 10 minutes to prepare the front courtyard before the master emerges and starts giving orders. Or worse, not giving orders and simply watching to see who fails. You sweep the front path, not that it ever helps. The desert wind has already laid claim to this place. Every stroke of your broom reveals new sand, like you're peeling off layers of ancient disappointment. Historians still argue whether servants in domestic Egyptian households had any form of autonomy or set wages. You wouldn't know. You're paid in bread beer and the vague promise of not getting yelled at before breakfast. You glance toward the east wall. There, etched in faded paint, are the outlines of the household gods, Taweret, the hippo-headed protector of mothers, and Bes, the squat little dwarf god who guards the home. You nod to them as you pass. Not quite a prayer, more like, "Hey, I'm still here. Try not to smite me today." The senior servant throws you a rolled-up mat and points toward the master's sleeping quarters. Time to lay out his sandals and prepare the morning linen. You jog. Inside the master's chamber, it's dark and quiet. You tread softly, even though he won't be awake for a while. The sandals are kept near the door, worn leather polished recently. You dust them off again anyway, just in case he checks. You lay them out with the care of a scribe copying a sacred scroll. Right sandal slightly ahead of the left. Heel to wall. No creases. No specks of sand. No mistakes. You step outside and inhale deeply. Already the temperature is rising. Already your feet ache. And the sun hasn't even cleared the horizon. You step outside the master's chamber and into the courtyard just as the sun peeks over the desert hills. It doesn't rise gently here. It erupts a blazing gold eye, casting long shadows and harsh truths across the packed earth. The early morning cool vanishes in an instant, replaced by that familiar wave of rising heat, like the gods suddenly decided to breathe on everything at once. The water jars are empty. Again. Of course they are. You grab the shoulder pole and 2 ceramic jugs and head toward the narrow footpath that winds down to the canal. You pass a group of field workers, heading out barefoot, sunburnt, yawning. One of them nods at you. You nod back. Everyone's too tired for words. You reach the edge of the Nile's secondary channel. A slow, muddy ribbon of water nestled between tall papyrus stands. A sacred ibis picks its way through the reeds, stabbing at frogs with the kind of focus you aspire to, but never quite reach before breakfast. You kneel lower one jug and fill it slowly. The water is warm already, and it smells faintly of algae and clay. You'll filter it later, maybe if you have time, which you won't. You splash some on your face. It's cold enough to sting. That's good. You rub the grit from your eyelids using your thumb and the hem of your tunic. A dragonfly buzzes past your ear, lands on your forehead, and leaves without paying rent. Quirky fact: many Egyptians used a mixture of natron and crushed silt as a kind of primitive face scrub. You're pretty sure that's what you're doing, whether you meant to or not. You stand, lift the pole onto your shoulders, and begin the walk back. It's heavier than you remembered, but then everything is. Back at the estate, the master is still not up, but his wife is. And that means fresh water needs to be brought to her chamber immediately, or she'll complain again about the scent of clay. She says it like it's an insult. To you, it smells like home. You deliver the jars to the servant stationed near her room. He takes them with a scowl that says you're late, though he's holding a fig in one hand and hasn't moved in 10 minutes. You return to the courtyard just in time to see the master finally emerge. He's wrapped in white linen, his shaved head gleaming like a polished melon. He steps into his sandals, the ones you arranged earlier, and gives them exactly 1/2 second of scrutiny before turning to bark orders at the kitchen. No one breathes until he walks off. You exhale. You didn't fail sandal duty. Today might be lucky. Historians still argue whether Egyptian servants saw their masters as gods, patrons, or simply well-fed problems. You lean toward the third. Your next task is tending to the entrance of the home, sweeping again, of course, because sand returns faster than your patience. You sweep in long arcs, watching as yesterday's footprints disappear under the tidy surface. You wonder how many years' worth of sweeping have taken place right here. How many servants before you did this exact motion in this exact spot with this exact broom? The wind answers by blowing a fresh handful of sand directly into your face. You cough. The broom hits a pebble. You pretend it didn't. A passing scribe eyes you from beneath his wax tablet. His look says, "I could record this," and your look says, "Please don't." You move faster. Eventually, you're called to prepare the washing basin for the master's morning cleanse. This is important, not because he cares much about being clean. He bathes in the evening, but because it's ritual. Water, natron, a strip of white linen, and a soft cloth for his hands. That's all. You carry the items carefully, bow your head as you approach, and wait silently until he nods for you to set them down. You do, and then you back away. No sudden movements, no direct eye contact, and definitely no talking unless spoken to. The master dips his hands in the basin and begins rubbing the paste into his fingers. You watch his expression for signs of approval. There aren't any, but he doesn't scowl either. You'll take it. Back in the side room, you sip a bit of leftover barley, beer from a shared cup. It's sour, slightly warm, and barely alcoholic, but it's liquid, and it's yours. Your stomach growls. You forgot to eat. A passing servant tosses you a piece of dried date. You catch it midair. Thank them with a nod and chew slowly. It tastes like dust and sugar. You love it. The courtyard begins to fill with more staff. Gardeners, cooks, grooms for the master's donkeys. The day is fully underway now, and you're expected to vanish into the rhythm of it. You return the basin, rinse it carefully with a splash of Nile water, and place it back in its carved niche. Then someone shouts your name. Time to prepare the master's outer robe. It's going to be one of those days. You hurry across the courtyard, sandals slapping against sun-baked stone as a cloud of fine dust puffs up behind each step. The master's robe must be laid out now, not 5 minutes from now. Not after your barley beer finishes settling. Not even after you find the servant who was supposed to press it. Because, of course, he is missing, and that makes it your fault. Now, you reach the linen storeroom, which smells like sweat mildew and the faintest hint of frankincense. A memory more than a scent. The shelves are lined with rolled tunics, robes, and kerchiefs, all folded with obsessive precision, and all threatening to tumble into chaos if you pull the wrong one. You find the robe finely woven white linen, fringed with pale indigo stitching. It's smoother than the rest, lighter. This isn't workwear. This is a garment meant to be seen in, at prayers, at feasts, at meetings with people who carry scrolls instead of baskets. You hold it up to the light. It's clean. No visible stains. You check the corners for scorpions anyway. That only has to happen once before you start taking it seriously. You carry it draped across your forearms like a sacrificial offering and return to the master's chamber. He's standing by the window, arms crossed, scowling like the sunlight has personally wronged him. You wait. He turns. You bow. You offer the robe. He takes it with one hand, pauses, then hands it back. It's creased. You blink. You say, "Yes, master." Not, "It was pressed yesterday." Not, "Then maybe you should find the pressing servant." Not, "Perhaps your divine arms could smooth it with your anger alone." Nope. Just, "Yes, master." you retreat. Return to the storeroom. Find the folding board. Begin smoothing out the linen on a flat stone slab with your own hands, muttering curses in the name of all the minor gods who surely see this. Quirky side note: ancient Egyptians had primitive ironing techniques using hot stones or smoothing tools to press linen flat. You're using your palm, a damp cloth, and the burning rage of a servant running out of dignity. After 5 minutes of rubbing, folding, and silently questioning your life path, the robe looks acceptable. Not perfect, but better. You deliver it again. He takes it, doesn't comment, which is a win. You step back into the courtyard only to be handed a new task: prepare the sandals. Again, you blink. You already did the sandals, but these are different sandals. Temple sandals. Of course, they're longer, fancier, decorative bands etched with papyrus reeds and stylized falcons. You check the soles, brush off the dust, and run your fingertip along the straps, feeling for wear. They're stiff, rarely used only for formal visits. You carry them like relics. Historians still argue whether household servants felt pride in their tasks or merely relief when nothing went wrong. You'd argue it's a mixture of both, with a dash of survival instinct. The sandals are accepted. No words spoken. You vanish again before you're noticed. Next, you're summoned to sweep the outer walkway. Yes, again. The walkway is long, exposed to the sun, bordering the garden, which means the dust competes with falling leaves, beetle trails, and the occasional donkey track. You begin at one end, working your way toward the entry gate. Your broom is a bundle of dry reeds tied with twine, and each stroke stirs more than it settles. You breathe in through your teeth to keep the sand out of your mouth. It doesn't help. Halfway down the path, a group of noble visitors approaches. You freeze. They're dressed in saffron and deep teal robes, gold jewelry shimmering in the light. You drop your gaze and move to the side. One of them points at your broom, laughs, says something about sweeping sand off the desert. You force a smile. They pass. You sweep harder. You reach the end of the walkway and find the kitchen boy lounging beside a basket of figs. He offers you one. You take it. It's soft, sun-warmed, and probably slightly fermented. It tastes like joy. You eat the whole thing before you even realize you were chewing. The bell rings from the granary. Mid-morning break, which means you can sit for 5 minutes and pretend the world isn't held together by your spine. You slump down beside the storage wall in the shade. Other servants join, one from the stable, one from the weaving house, a girl who plucks lotus blossoms for the lady of the house. You don't talk much, but there's comfort in proximity. Someone passes around a cloth pouch of nuts. You take two. Chew slowly. A dog barks in the distance. The stable boy throws a pebble in its direction. The dog barks louder. You lie back for a moment, eyes closed. It's not sleep, just not working. And that counts for something. Then the bell rings again. Time's up. You stand dust off your tunic and return to your station. Your next task: wipe down the statue in the master's reception hall. Yes, the one with the falcon head. Yes, the one that's already clean. Yes, the one you must polish with scented oil until it gleams. And if the god gets mad, well, that's between him and your sore shoulders. You re-enter the reception hall, arms full of cloth jar of scented oil clinking gently against your hip. The statue looms ahead. Horus, falcon. Headed eyes carved to pierce your soul. Or at the very least, your productivity. The hall is quiet, save for the gentle clinking of wind through reed shutters. Sunlight slants through high windows, catching flecks of dust in the air. It would be beautiful if you weren't about to spend the next hour polishing divine feathers. You kneel before the statue and bow slightly, just in case. Better to be safe than smitten. The cloth is coarse, but soft enough not to scratch. You dip it lightly in the oil lotus scented as always, and begin rubbing gently over Horus's beak, then down his neck, carefully following the carved ridges. He doesn't blink, obviously, but you feel watched anyway. There's something unnerving about cleaning a god. It's not like wiping down the master's sandals. You don't just scrub. You honor. You present. You hope you don't offend. Quirky fact: in some temples, priests and high servants were instructed to treat statues as living beings. They dressed them, bathed them, fed them incense and song. You just polish and apologize under your breath. Halfway through, your hand cramps. You pause, shake it out, and glance around to make sure no one sees you slacking. The overseer's shadow crosses the threshold, then disappears again. You keep wiping. The scent of lotus fills your nostrils. It's pleasant at first, then cloying. You resist the urge to sneeze. Horus might not appreciate bodily functions. At the base of the statue, there's a faint crack in the pedestal, probably from heat expansion or time. You trace your cloth around it, carefully, pretending not to notice. If you mention it, they'll blame you. You finish the job and step back, admiring your work. Horus gleams like sunrise on the river. You allow yourself a tiny nod of satisfaction. Then someone calls your name. Laundry duty. You sigh, loudly, but not loud enough to echo in the hall of gods. Outside, the sun is in full command now, blazing from directly overhead, drying mud into stone and making linen feel like hot iron against your skin. You collect the bundle of used linens, tunic cloths, headscarves, sashes, and one very elaborate shawl that smells like expensive perfume and overconfidence. You sling them over your shoulder and head toward the river. The path to the water is crowded. Other servants are already there, some scrubbing, some rinsing, some just gossiping, as they pretend to wring water from already dry fabrics. You find an open spot near a flat rock and set to work. First the rinse, then the rub, then the slap, slap, slap of cloth against stone. Again and again. The rhythm is ancient hypnotic. The sound carries across the water like a quiet spell. One woman nearby sings a work song in a minor key. Her voice is low, smoky, worn from years of river wind and repetition. You hum along without thinking. Historians still argue whether servant songs were coded resistance or simply rhythm aids. Either way, it helps the time pass. You rub harder. The perfume-soaked shawl is being stubborn. You swear it's clinging to its scent out of spite. You dunk it again this time, adding a bit of crushed lotus leaf for good measure. Your fingers are wrinkled and red, but you keep scrubbing. Next to you, two older women whisper about something happening in the palace district. A priest accused of theft. A noble caught sneaking food from the grain store. The usual drama, high people, low problems. You glance up and catch sight of the pyramids in the far distance, shimmering in the haze. They look unreal, like God's dice left on the sand. You finish rinsing, twist each piece tightly, and hang them on the nearby bushes and ropes strung between stakes. The sun will dry them quickly. At least it's good for something. You splash water on your face. It drips down your neck, blessedly cool. The wind shifts. You smell roasted garlic. Your stomach answers immediately. You grab your empty basket and head back toward the estate, wiping your hands on your tunic. As you near the kitchen, the cook waves you over. She's plump, fast-talking, and always smells like onions and secrets. She shoves a lump of something warm into your hand, a fried lentil cake. You blink. She winks. You take a bite. It's greasy, salty, perfect. For a moment, you forget how tired you are. For a moment, you're just a person eating something delicious under the Egyptian sun. Then someone shouts your name again. The noblewoman wants her hair combed, because apparently that's your job now, too. You wipe your hands on your tunic again and make your way toward the inner quarters. The lady of the house doesn't ask for anything. She expects. And right now, she expects her hair to be perfect despite the humidity, the heat, and the fact that the last person who brushed it too roughly got reassigned to dung cart duty for a week. You knock softly on the wooden door frame, bow your head, and wait. Her chamber smells like rose oil, incense, and power. She's reclining on a cushioned mat flanked by 2 perfume jars and a curious-looking monkey wearing a beaded collar. You decide not to ask. She doesn't look at you. She just points at the comb. You pick it up, a carved ivory thing with tiny, delicate teeth, and begin working slowly through her black, oiled hair. Every motion is careful, steady, gentle, like sculpting with your fingertips. You don't speak. You don't breathe too loud. You just comb. Behind you, her pet monkey mimics your hand movements in the air. You pretend not to notice. The room is quiet, except for the soft whisper of the comb and the occasional snort from the monkey. The lady hums a tune under her breath, something old, something you half recognize from temple processions. You find a small tangle near the nape of her neck. You pause. You hold your breath. You gently work it free. Success. Quirky note. Elite Egyptian women often kept personal servants specifically for hair perfume and cosmetics, tasks considered almost sacred. You're not quite at sacred status, but you are now trusted with pins and scented wax. Progress. The lady finally speaks. Oil, she says. You reach for the bottle, sweet almond with crushed lotus, and apply just a touch to the ends of her hair. The scent rises with the heat, soft and heady. She nods, a flick of her fingers. You're dismissed. You bow and retreat, limbs loose with relief. Outside, the air feels 10 degrees cooler, and you've never appreciated it more. You head back toward the courtyard. It's nearly midday now. The sun is at its highest, beating down with full confidence. The shade has shrunk to thin slivers along the mud brick walls. You find your usual spot beneath the fig tree and sink to the ground. It's not cool, but it's not molten, which is good enough. Someone tosses you a skin of beer. You take a grateful sip. It's sour, flat, slightly gritty, and completely refreshing. You share the spot with 3 others, a pottery apprentice, a boy who helps the animal keepers, and a kitchen girl who hasn't smiled all week. No one talks much. You chew on a dried date and let your spine forget about all the combing. Historians still argue whether midday breaks were institutional or just tolerated due to the heat. You argue that if no one moves for 15 minutes, it's a law of nature. A beetle wanders past your foot. You watch it make a heroic journey over a stick and disappear into a crack. The pottery apprentice asks if you've heard about the missing shipment of incense from Thebes. You shrug. Smells like someone else's problem. The kitchen girl sighs and tosses a pebble at the wall. Time stretches in the heat, long and soft like melted honey. Then the overseer's voice slices through it like a knife. You mark it. You blink. You yes. You. Apparently, there's a shortage of leeks, and someone competent needs to fetch more before the evening meal. Congratulations. You're competent now. You sigh, brush the dust from your tunic, and accept the small coin pouch handed to you with all the enthusiasm of a condemned man receiving his last meal. Off to the market. You head through the village gate, squinting into the sun as you follow the dusty path toward the market square. The street is already loud. Vendors shout over one another, peddling dried fish baskets, reeds, spices, and loud opinions. Donkeys bray. Children run between stalls. Someone's goat is stuck in a pottery stand. Again. You push through, trying to keep your pouch out of obvious sight. You stop at the produce stall, a heap of onions, garlic, and leeks, piled into woven baskets. You ask for 6 leeks. The vendor grunts and starts counting slowly. He's missing 2 teeth and most of his patience. You pay. He shortchanges you. You argue. He laughs. You argue again. He relents. Barely. With leeks finally in hand, you move toward the incense merchant. He's not where he's supposed to be. You circle twice before you find him arguing with a scribe about taxation rates. You wait. He ignores you. You clear your throat. He continues ignoring you. Finally, you get his attention. You ask for the frankincense. He nods, measures out a pinch more than you expected. You nod in return. Small victories. As you turn to leave, someone bumps you. Hard. Your pouch shifts. You catch the hand before it fully retreats. A boy. Maybe 9. You glare. He shrugs. You let him go. Stealing happens. It's not personal. You check your coin. Still there. You sigh. You head back. The sun hasn't moved. The heat hasn't eased. But at least you didn't get pickpocketed, trampled, or yelled at yet, which means you're having a good day. Sort of. You return to the estate with your arms full leeks. In one hand, a small linen pouch of incense pressed awkwardly under your elbow, and sweat trickling down your spine like it's trying to escape your body entirely. The gatekeeper gives you a look. Not a greeting, just a look, like he's surprised you made it back at all. You drop off the incense at the storage room, carefully, reverently, as if it's actual treasure, and hand the leeks to a scowling kitchen assistant who immediately mutters that they're too small. You shrug. It's not like you grew them yourself. Your reprieve is short-lived. The steward appears with a finger pointed directly at you. "Guest," he says. That's all. Just one word. But you know what it means. The tax collector is here, and you're about to spend the next hour pretending your household is cleaner, wealthier, and infinitely more welcoming than it actually is. You jog toward the main hall. There's a fan to be fetched, dates to be arranged on a plate, floor mats to be straightened, cushions to be dusted. And, oh yes, someone apparently left a chicken feather in the incense brazier. That must be dealt with immediately. The official arrives shortly after robes, too stiff, sandals, too clean, and a scroll so long it needs its own escort. He looks around with the permanent expression of someone who's smelled something mildly offensive and isn't sure where it's coming from. You bow deeply. He does not return the gesture. Instead, he clicks his tongue and points at a bench. You scurry to place a cushion. He sits, sighs, asks for beer. You fetch it. He sips, grimaces, asks for the other one. You fetch that too. He takes a bite of a date, chews it for a full 30 seconds, then nods as if he prepared it. He waves for the steward who enters and begins reciting figures, grain quotas, animal counts, roof repairs, flood damage, temple donations. You stand in the corner, silent, still ready to refill the plate, or remove the cup, or sweep up the invisible speck of dirt that only officials can detect. Historians still argue whether tax collectors were seen as necessary evils or just plain evil. You don't argue at all. You have a strong opinion, and it involves a chamber full of wasps. The steward stumbles over a number. The official arches a brow. You stop breathing. He scribbles something on the scroll. Eventually, he rises, mutters something about sending a note to Thebes, and leaves. Just like that. A whirlwind of judgment and bureaucracy. You collapse metaphorically behind the nearest doorframe and exhale the breath you'd been holding for the last 20 minutes. Then someone shouts, "Water jars need hauling." Of course. You head for the cistern behind the granary, grab the wooden yoke, and lift 2 ceramic amphorae onto your shoulders. They're heavier than usual, or maybe you're just weaker than usual. Either way, your arms tremble as you climb the steps back toward the upper kitchen. Halfway up, your foot slips. Your knee barks against the stone. 1 amphora wobbles. You save it. Barely. But your shin now throbs like it owes someone money. You grit your teeth, reach the top, and place the jars down with exaggerated care. No one notices, because no one ever notices. You wipe your forehead and return for the second round. This time, you go slower. At the base of the stairs, a stray cat watches you with absolute disdain. You want to explain that you're doing your best, but he wouldn't care. At the top, you deliver the second pair of jars. Someone takes one immediately and walks off without a word. You stretch your back. It pops audibly. A passing boy says, "That didn't sound good." You tell him it's ancient tradition. He nods like that makes sense. The sun is beginning its slow descent, but the heat still sits thick and heavy over the estate. Shadows lengthen. Cicadas begin their evening chorus. The sky turns a deeper gold. You're sent to prepare the evening lamps. You walk from room to room with a small jug of oil and a woven basket of wicks. One by one, you fill the stone bowls, place the flax strands, and light the flames. Each room takes on a soft, flickering glow. Walls, lined with painted hieroglyphs, come alive in the dancing light. Figures of gods and kings shimmer like they're breathing. You pause in one chamber, empty, quiet, cool. You sit, just for a moment. You close your eyes and let the silence wrap around you. Then you hear the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind you. You're needed. Dinner is approaching, and someone forgot to set out the serving trays. You stand. Your knees protest again. Your arms follow. But you move, because the day isn't over. Not yet. The kitchen is chaos. You step through the doorway and are immediately greeted by heat smoke and shouting. Pots clatter. Fires roar. Someone is waving a ladle like it's a weapon, and the air smells like roasted onions, overcooked lentils, and something burnt that everyone is politely ignoring. You dodge a basket of dates being hauled past you and squeeze your way toward the prep table where someone thrusts a cloth at you. "Trays," she says. "Hurry." You nod. Not that you have a choice. You start arranging the evening meal. Flatbread fish stewed in garlic and coriander, pickled radish, and bowls of lentils that look as uninspired as you feel. A small plate of figs and honey gets added at the last second, probably for the lady of the house. Or a guest. Definitely not for you. One by one, you balance the trays on your arms and carry them out to the main dining chamber. You've done this enough times to know how not to spill, where to step, to avoid the cracked tile, and which servant to follow, so that you don't get stuck refilling cups for the master's third cousin with the bad breath and endless complaints. You place the dishes on the reed mat bow and retreat to the side of the room. Your job now is to stand still. Keep your mouth shut and refill whatever someone points at, ideally before they ask. The family enters. The master speaks first, then the lady, then silence as everyone begins to eat, except you. You and the other servants watch and wait and pour and smile, but only when they're not looking. You pour more beer. You offer more bread. You pretend your stomach isn't chewing itself into a linen knot. Quirky detail servants in wealthier Egyptian households were often trained in etiquette, when to approach, how to bow, and exactly how much eye contact not to make. You've mastered the art of looking present without actually existing. Historians still argue whether servants were viewed as part of the household or just animated tools. Right now, you feel more like a piece of furniture with exceptionally good balance. Eventually, the meal ends. The master wipes his hands on a linen square and dismisses everyone with a wave. Just like that, it's over. Plates are cleared, bowls stacked, fig devoured. The servants file out behind you, carrying the leftovers. And no, they're not for you. Back in the kitchen, the fire is dying down. You set the trays by the washing station, where two sleepy-looking girls are half-heartedly scrubbing clay bowls in soapy water that used to be clear. You finally grab a piece of leftover flatbread that someone forgot to hide. It's dry, a little scorched, absolutely perfect. You lean against the wall, chewing slowly, savoring every crumb like it's royal rations. Then someone hands you a broom. Because of course they do. You sweep the floor again. You've swept more floors than a gust of wind. And this one, with its stuck lentils and smashed dates, might be your greatest challenge yet. Eventually, the hearth is cleared, the table wiped, and the bread loaves wrapped in cloth for tomorrow. Someone starts humming a lullaby, the kind that sounds like it's been sung for 2,000 years. Probably has. You're dismissed. Not told. Just the energy in the room shifts, and you know. You step outside, The air is cooler now. Finally, the sky is turning lavender and gold like someone spilled wine over sand. Stars begin to blink awake above you, sharp and bright. The moon hangs low, full of secrets and silence. You head back to your corner of the servant quarters, where the others are already settling in. A clay oil lamp flickers. The dog is snoring beside the door. Someone is snoring louder inside. You sit, remove your sandals, stretch your legs. A sigh escapes you, deep, long, not quite exhaustion, not quite relief. You eat a few dried beans from your pouch. You don't remember packing them. Maybe someone shared. Maybe you saved them earlier. Doesn't matter. They're yours now. You curl up on your mat, woven reeds, soft in exactly 0 places, and pull your cloak over your shoulders. It smells like today, like oil and sweat and just a hint of rose water. You close your eyes, almost. Then the head servant walks in. Tomorrow, he says, temple duty. You groan. Out loud this time. He smirks. You're too tired to argue. And you were hoping for a quiet day. But temples don't clean themselves. You wake up sore, which is redundant because you always wake up sore. But today, it's temple duty, which means every muscle that already hurts will soon be joined by a few new ones you didn't know existed. It's still dark when you rise. The oil lamp's gone out, and someone is muttering in their sleep about scorpions. You step over the snoring dog, splash a bit of water on your face, and fumble for your sash. Your tunic is still dusty from yesterday. No point in changing. You'll just be sweeping holy dust instead of house dust. By the time the sun peeks over the palms, you're already on your way, following a path lined with cracked stones and sleepy birds. The temple looms in the distance, massive, ancient, and humming with silence. Its columns rise like petrified giants, etched with stories and prayers older than anything you've ever been allowed to read. You pass the gatekeeper with a respectful bow. He yawns in return and lets you through. Inside, it's cooler, still, the kind of quiet that wraps around your bones and makes you forget the sound of your own voice. It smells of old incense, dried flowers, and faintly of beeswax. Your first task, sweep the outer courtyard. You pick up the wide, flat broom, this one woven tighter than your household tool, and begin. Long, slow strokes. Sand leaves petals from the previous day's offerings. All of it gets pushed aside like memory. You're not alone. 2 other temple servants are already working. One is humming. The other is lighting the morning offering flames in small stone basins along the colonnade. You watch the fire catch. It feels like the gods are waking up with you. Then it's time for the inner sanctum. You've only been inside once before, and only because the usual servant had the Nile fever. Today, you carry a small jar of natron water, a soft cloth, and a tray of fresh lotus flowers. You don't ask questions. You don't speak. You just follow instructions like they were carved into stone. Inside the statue of the god Amun is seated tall and regal eyes, wide and unmoving. You bow low before entering. You begin cleaning the platform around his feet. You don't look him in the face. That's not your job. Your job is to gently wipe away yesterday's dust, replace the faded flowers, and sprinkle just a few drops of scented oil at the base. Quirky practice. Some temples in Egypt treated their statues as living deities. Servants like you would awaken the god each day, bathe it, dress it, and even offer food. You don't get that honor. You just clean around his sandals. A bead of sweat trickles down your back. You ignore it. Historians still argue whether this elaborate ritual was purely symbolic or if people truly believed the god inhabited the statue. You're not sure, but right now, you hope Amun appreciates clean floors. Once the chamber is restored, you back away slowly, bow again, and exit into the outer hall, blinking at the brighter light. Your next job is helping with the water jars. Of course, the temple needs a constant supply for purifications, for rituals, for just about anything, really. You hoist a jug onto your shoulder and follow the others to the well. The walk is long, but your feet move automatically now. They know the rhythm, the pacing, the best way to avoid the worst rocks. At the well, you lower the rope, hear the satisfying splash, and haul up the water with arms that already regret being attached to you. You fill your jar, adjust your grip, and turn back. A priest passes. He nods. That's rare. You nod back, careful not to make eye contact for too long. Priests are halfway to divinity. Servants like you are halfway to invisible. By midday, your tunic is soaked in sweat, your hands pruny from water, and your legs feel like overcooked lentils. You rest for 5 minutes in the shade of a palm tree just outside the temple gate. You munch on a piece of old bread you forgot was in your sash. It's hard enough to be considered a tool, but it quiets your stomach. A beetle scurries across your foot. You sigh. The temple bell sounds. Back to it. This time, sweeping the stairway, polishing the offering plates, and helping set up for tonight's moonlight vigil. There's always something. By the time the sun starts to dip behind the temple walls, You're wiping your hands on a cloth blackened with soot and oil, and your arms feel like you've been wrestling stone. You help light the first round of torches along the path. The fire flickers to life, dancing orange against the sandstone. It's beautiful. You barely notice. You walk back to the estate under the dimming sky. Your feet hurt. Your back screams. Your eyes sting from the incense. And yet, the moment you pass through the gate, someone hands you a new task. The lady wants her feet washed. Of course she does. You sigh deeply and head to the water basin because somehow you're still alive. You carry the bronze basin slowly, careful not to slosh too much water over the sides. Your tunic is already soaked from temple duty, and the last thing you need is to add clumsy to your growing reputation for being too available. The lady of the house is waiting in her usual corner of the courtyard, shaded by wide linen sails and flanked by pillows that probably cost more than your entire extended family. She's lounging with one ankle delicately crossed over the other foot, extended like a commandment. You kneel beside her. Don't speak. Don't make eye contact. Just dip your cloth in the cool water and begin. Her feet are smooth, oiled, polished. Probably haven't touched bare earth in years. You, on the other hand, could start a sandpaper business with yours. You rinse, wipe, rinse again. She doesn't say a word, but she does sigh long and theatrical when the breeze shifts and a bit of dust lands on her freshly washed ankle. You clean it again. She smells like cinnamon and myrrh and vague disapproval. Once you finish, you dry her feet with a cloth so fine you're afraid to fold it. She flicks her fingers in dismissal. You bow and back away. Outside, the last light of the day glows deep orange, slanting between the pillars and turning the dust into floating gold. You allow yourself 5 seconds, just 5, to sit beneath the courtyard fig tree and rest your eyes. Then it's back to the kitchen. Evening meal prep again. But this time, you're not serving nobles. You're cooking for your people. The kitchen smells different when it's yours. Less pressure, more smoke. The lentils are thicker, the onions rougher, chopped, the bread crustier. But the air carries laughter for once. Someone sings a song about a donkey who refused to carry bricks and became a priest. It's ridiculous. You laugh anyway. You chop onions with a chipped knife. You stir the pot with a stick that may or may not have once been a broom handle. And when the lentils are ready, you eat them hot. You don't wait. You savor. The bowl is crude clay chipped at the rim, but it holds warmth better than any gold platter. You sit on the kitchen floor, cross-legged, with 3 others. Someone passes flatbread. Someone else hands you a dried fig. For a few glorious minutes, it's quiet. No masters, no sandals, no statues, no gods that need polishing. Just food, firelight, and the soft, slow exhale of being off duty. Historians still argue whether servant communities formed genuine bonds or remained divided by roles. Right now, with lentils in your bowl and laughter in the air, you feel like the answer is obvious. You stretch out your legs, lean back against the wall, and glance out the open doorway. The stars are fully out now, spread across the sky like beads on a pharaoh's collar. The Big Dipper, Orion, Sirius blinking low on the horizon. You remember hearing stories as a child about how those stars were the spirits of ancient kings rowing across the heavens on boats made of light. You wonder if they're watching now, if they see you. You grab a reed mat and join the others outside. It's cooler out here. Someone's already snoring. Someone else is whispering a prayer. You lie on your side, face to the sky, and pull your cloak up to your chin. The mat is scratchy. The air smells like lentils and dust. Your shoulder throbs. And yet, it's peaceful. The kind of quiet that only happens when the whole world is too tired to be loud. You blink slowly, just once, then again. Sleep starts to pull at your eyelids. Then the dog barks. Everyone groans, but the dog was right. Footsteps. Approaching. You sit up. It's the steward. He looks around, spots you, and points. There's a guest arriving late, he says. You don't even argue. You just sigh, stand up, and reach for your sandals. Because rest, like everything else, is rationed. You slip your sandals on worn leather, crekat at the heel, and follow the steward through the moonlit courtyard, your shadow stretching long and skinny across the tiles. The night air is cooler now, crisp even, but it's not the kind of cool that revives you. It's the kind that reminds you how tired you are. The steward mutters something about the guest being noble enough to demand help, but not noble enough to bring his own servants. You don't respond. You're already halfway through mentally preparing the tray. Clean, matte water jug, scented cloth, and if you're unlucky, food. The gate creaks open. The guest steps through. He's wrapped in dyed linen, deeper brown than the usual house tunic, and trimmed with green embroidery. He's young, maybe mid-20s, and already fanning himself like the air personally offended him. He doesn't acknowledge you. That's fine. You're used to it. You take his belongings, a travel bag, a walking stick carved with falcons, and a scroll tube he hands over. Like it's the heart of the sun, you guide him through the outer hall and into the guest quarters, rarely used, always dusty, no matter how often they're cleaned. You light the oil lamp, straighten the floor mat, and fluff the cushion with the good stuffing. He finally speaks. I need water and something to eat. Bread, figs, whatever's hot. You bow, then vanish into the night again. You raid the kitchen again. There's still bread left from your earlier meal, and one of the cooks reluctantly hands over a bowl of warm lentils, grumbling about people who arrive after dinner like the world revolves around their sandals. You return, place the tray neatly beside the guest's mat, and pour the water. He tastes the bread, nods. No, thank you. Of course not. You stand nearby, silent. He finishes quickly, then waves a dismissive hand and lies down. You extinguish the lamp, walk outside, and close the door behind you, and exhale. Historians still argue whether late-arriving nobles were treated as honored guests or just tolerated. You argue that either way, they all act like Pharaoh himself. Back in your corner of the estate, the other servants are already asleep again. The snoring has resumed. The dog has reclaimed your reed mat. You nudge him gently. He growls. You compromise and share. You lie down facing the stars. Your neck cricks. Your knees ache. You close your eyes. And for once, sleep takes you quickly. You don't know how long it lasts. An hour, too, because suddenly there's shouting. You sit bolt upright. A lantern swings in the hallway. Voices echo. Something's happened. You stumble to your feet, heart pounding, for reasons you can't quite name. Turns out, it's not fire or a thief, just a donkey, a very loud donkey that wandered into the grain store and knocked over 3 sacks of barley. The steward is livid. The stable hand is missing. Guess who gets sent to clean it? You. Of course. You find yourself knee-deep in barley under moonlight, scooping grain back into sacks with a palm leaf and a broken clay bowl. Quirky truth. Barley was used not only for food, but also to brew beer, pay wages, and even offer tribute. Right now, it's also being used to ruin your night. You hum a lullaby to yourself as you work. Not because you're feeling sweet, but because if you don't, you might start throwing barley at the donkey instead of into the sack. Eventually, the floor is clean-ish. You tie the sacks with twine. The donkey blinks at you, utterly unbothered. You sigh, pat its head, once out of habit, more than fondness, and return to your mat. The dog is gone this time. Small wins. You lie down again. Stare at the sky. There are fewer stars now. Clouds have drifted in from the west, curling like smoke. The night is nearly over. Your eyes drift closed again. But before sleep fully takes you, one last thought crawls in. This is just one day. You've got hundreds more ahead. You wake just before dawn, not because anyone called, but because your body has learned to flinch at the idea of rest lasting too long. The sky above is a muted blue-gray, the kind that promises heat without apology. Your mouth is dry. Your back is sore. The barley dust from last night still clings to your tunic, and you're pretty sure your left arm is covered in donkey hair. You sit up. The dog is already gone, probably chasing a lizard or an unbothered chicken. Lucky creature. You rinse your face quickly from the communal jar. The water is tepid as always, and you swear it's more dust than liquid at this point. Still, it wakes you up. Today starts with courtyard cleaning. Again, you grab your broom now, mostly a bundle of worn reeds and optimism, and begin the long, familiar rhythm. Sweep, stoop, lift, repeat. The dust never really goes away, but someone might yell if it looks like it hasn't been swept. Halfway through your circuit, you notice the guest from last night emerging from his quarters, adjusting his robe and stretching like someone who slept the whole night in peace. You grit your teeth behind a polite smile and bow slightly. He ignores you. Perfect. He leaves soon after taking his scroll tube and his attitude with him. You can breathe a little easier again. In the kitchen, breakfast is being assembled. For the household, not for you. The smells of warm barley cakes and date syrup waft through the air like cruel perfume. You grab a leftover crust from yesterday and chew it slowly behind a wall. One of the younger servants joins you, barefoot, eyes still half closed. She offers half a fig. You trade her the last bite of your crust. No words are exchanged. The trade is sacred. Then comes the call for laundry. Again, you trudge down to the river with the same bundle of stained linens, the same water jug, and the same weary sigh. The banks are already crowded with others' servants, washerwomen, a few fishermen who shout greetings. You're too tired to return. You find your usual flat rock kneel and begin rinse, rub, slap, twist, repeat. A rhythm older than most dynasties. Historians still argue whether communal tasks like washing built solidarity or simply reminded everyone how unequal life was. You figure it depends on the mood and how many leeches are in the river that day. Today, only one. Small victories. The sun climbs higher, and your arms grow heavier. You squint up at the temple, just visible in the distance. It gleams faintly under the morning sun, unmoved, unchanged. You finish your washing, hang the linens across a rope strung between two palms, and sit for a minute under the shade. That minute ends too soon. You're summoned back. This time, it's to assist with the midday offering at the household shrine. You carry the incense bowl, light the reeds, and wave the smoke gently across the small carved statue of Hathor. The lady of the house watches silently as you work. You bow deeply, whisper the invocation, and withdraw. Later, as the sun reaches its brutal peak, you help mend a torn canopy cloth. The linen is coarse and stubborn, and the needle you've been given has a bend in it that makes stitching feel like punishment. Still, you persist. One stitch, then another, until your hands cramp and your fingers are spotted with pinpricks. You rub your palm and return the cloth. The steward inspects it briefly, nods, and for the first time in recent memory, says, "Good." You blink. He doesn't repeat it, but you heard him. You walk back to the servants' quarters for a rare midday break. There's a half-full bowl of lentils being passed around. You take a few spoonfuls and lie back against the wall. The wind shifts. It carries the scent of someone roasting garlic somewhere nearby. You close your eyes. The others talk softly about chores, about rumors, about nothing. The kind of talk that says, "We're still here." You smile faintly. Then you remember, you're on candle duty tonight. You sigh, open your eyes, and rise. Because if nothing else, candles won't light themselves. And neither will the night. The sun is beginning to soften now, casting long, golden beams that stretch across the courtyard like fingers reaching for the past. Shadows sharpen, deepen. The world glows in warm amber, and you know what that means. Evening is coming, and it's time to light the candles. You collect your kit: a clay jar of oil, a handful of fresh flax wicks, and a small fire stick. You've learned to strike just right, too soft, and the flame won't catch too hard, and you'll burn off your eyebrows. You begin with the main walkway. Tall lamps sit in iron sconces along the walls. You climb a small stool, replace the wick drizzle oil with care, and bring the flame close. The wick hisses once, then lights. One down, dozens to go. The next one is trickier, windy corner. You shield it with your hand. Success. You move from room to room, leaving pools of light behind you. Each flickering flame gives life to shadows dancing along walls covered in old paint and cracked plaster. Eyes of painted gods seem to follow you with faint amusement. You whisper to them, not prayers, just little things like, "Let this one catch, please," or "Don't fall today, not today." No one hears, except maybe the gods. Historians still argue whether servants personalized their tasks with rituals, or whether that's modern fantasy. You've never not whispered to the lamps, and every one of them still burns. Coincidence. In the master's quarters, you light 2 standing lamps and a pair of smaller wall sconces. The flames flicker against the gold inlays of a carved chest. You glance at it, but don't stare. That chest is older than you and filled with things that you're not allowed to know about. You finish the lighting circuit just in time for the evening inspection. The steward walks the estate checking rooms. He notes the lamps, the food laid out, the linens, the air itself. You walk a few paces behind him, holding your breath. He doesn't say anything. Not good. But not fix this either. You'll take it. You return your kit to the supply room and steal a moment of silence. Then you hear it. Drumming. Not loud, not fast, just a slow, steady beat echoing from the far side of the village. Tonight is a festival night. You'd forgotten. You peek over the courtyard wall. A procession is forming. Musicians, dancers, priests in clean robes, and townsfolk with flower crowns and clay rattles. They're heading toward the temple for a moon offering. The estate doesn't participate, not formally. But watching is allowed. You linger by the wall. A woman dances past, her hands raised, bracelets chiming. Behind her, a boy balances a tray of grapes and beer. A line of men carry a statue of Hathor on a litter, flowers draped across its shoulders. The moon rises huge, golden, solemn. It hovers above the river, reflected in dark ripples. You lean your chin on your hands and breathe in deeply. The scent of lilies, fire dust, and something else, something old, fills the night. And for a moment, you forget your sore arms, your torn tunic, the never-ending cycle of sweeping and scrubbing. For a moment, it's just music and moonlight, quirky detail, Hathor's moon festival was one of the few times when commoners and nobles mixed freely, dancing under the same stars, pouring beer for the same goddess. You, of course, stay on your side of the wall. The drums fade into the distance. You return inside. The night meal is simple barley porridge, half a fig, a crust of bread. You eat with your fingers sitting cross-legged, with the others near the dimming hearth. Someone mentions the dancing girl. Someone else swears the moon blinked at them. You laugh quietly, not because it's true, but because it might be. You rinse your bowl with a splash of warm water and set it on the shelf. Then you find your mat, stretch out, and let the aches in your back settle into familiar corners. You stare at the ceiling. A lizard crawls across a beam. The stars beyond the shutters shine cold and perfect. You think of the woman with the flower crown, of the statue on the litter, of the moon's reflection in the river, and slowly, softly, sleep begins to take you. Until, wake up, someone whispers. You blink. The lady dropped a ring. She wants it found. You sit up. Of course she does. You drag yourself to your feet, joints popping like old reeds. The mat tries to hold on to your imprint, but you leave it behind, following the whisperer out into the courtyard, where the moon still hangs like an unblinking eye. The lady's ring, a tiny gold band, barely thicker than a thread of barley straw. She dropped it in the eastern hall near the fountain. She wants it back before morning. Of course she does. You fetch a small oil lamp and crouch beside the mosaic tiled floor, eyes straining to catch the faintest glint. The tiles are cracked uneven and peppered with little dips that could hide anything from beetles to jewelry to your fading patience. You scan slowly, sweeping your hand across the ground like you're blessing it with your exhaustion. You check under cushions, between floor stones, even in the fountain itself. No ring. You check again. Still no ring. A breeze shifts through the hallway, lifting the hem of a linen curtain. You sigh and crawl toward it, lifting one corner of a rug that looks suspiciously newer than the others. There it is, half stuck in the weave, gleaming faintly like the moon's mischievous cousin. You pluck it out and turn it over in your fingers, so small, so insignificant, and yet capable of upending your entire night. You return it silently to the senior handmaid, who doesn't thank you, but nods once. That's enough. Back in the courtyard, the stars have shifted. The dog has reclaimed your mat again. This time, you don't bother asking. You just lie beside him, feet hanging off the edge, one arm over your eyes. You don't fall asleep, so much as collapse into unconsciousness. It doesn't last, because at dawn, the crier's horn sounds. It's festival cleanup day. You barely manage a groan before someone kicks your foot. Not unkindly, just urgently. You rise. Again. Today you'll be scrubbing floors covered in flower petals, picking up broken clay cups, and carrying away bundles of spent incense stems. You begin in the outer walkway, sweeping fallen palm fronds and trampled decorations. The petals cling to your broom like regrets. The incense ashes stain your fingers, faintly purple. Quirky truth. Some ancient festivals ended with formal purification rituals, where servants ritually cleansed the grounds so the joy didn't invite divine jealousy. You're not sure about the gods, but the nobles definitely like to leave their mess behind. You help wash down the statues, repolish the offering trays, and refill the small temple bowls with fresh water and lotus buds. By midday, the estate looks untouched again, like last night's celebration was a dream. You, however, look like last night's leftovers. You wash your face at the courtyard basin, take a swig of tepid water, and sit quietly beneath the fig tree. The dog joins you. The sun overhead feels slightly kinder today. Slightly. You spot the steward across the yard. He's inspecting linen bolts, counting something frowning as usual. You brace yourself, but he doesn't call you. Instead, he turns to someone else. You smile a little. That's a win. You spend the afternoon helping a weaver mend a torn canopy. She works fast fingers, moving like music. You hold the edge taut as she stitches, and in exchange, she gives you half a honeyed date. It's the best thing you've tasted in days. You savor it, slowly. Evening comes. You help serve the meal. Refill the wine jug twice, and only spill once. No one notices. You eat last again, but tonight's barley porridge is thicker than usual. Someone must have found a spare scoop. You don't ask who. You just enjoy it. After you wander through the courtyard alone, checking lamps. Some still burn. Others flicker. You light one again. Just because. You sit on the bench by the eastern wall, the one you never get to use during the day. You lean back and stretch your legs. The air is soft. The moon is full, again, glowing like a pearl in the river of stars above. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian servants felt close to the rhythms of celestial ritual or were simply too tired to look up. Tonight, you look up, and it's worth it. Your shoulders ache. Your hands are cracked. Your mind is foggy. But for this one moment, you feel still. you close your eyes. And this time, sleep arrives without anyone calling your name. You wake to bird song, real bird song, not roosters, not shouting, not someone dropping a pot, just the gentle trill of sparrows somewhere in the fig tree overhead. You blink in the soft morning light, momentarily unsure what day it is. Your back aches. Your feet are sore. Your palms are raw. And yes, it's definitely another day as a servant in ancient Egypt. You sit up slowly. The dog's still asleep, stretched out, belly up, like he owns the place. You envy him deeply. Today's chore list arrives without ceremony. Carry supplies from the storage shed to the workshop. Deliver oil to the scribe's quarters. And help prepare a guest room for someone important. You nod. You don't ask who. Important just means more trays, more sweeping, and more chances to get blamed for someone else's mistake. First, stop the storage room. It smells like old rope, musty baskets, and the faint scent of cedar. You load a tray with folded linens, a jar of lamp oil, and 2 bundles of dried reeds. One nearly slips as you shift your grip, but you catch it with your knee, and a whispered plea to every house god available. The courtyard is already warming under the rising sun, but today there's a breeze, just enough to cool the sweat on your brow as you move from one building to another. You deliver the oil to the scribe's door. He doesn't answer when you knock, but you hear the soft sound of reed pen against papyrus. You leave the jar quietly and back away. Then the guest room. It's always the same fresh linens, scented water, an intact mat, and no visible bugs. You sweep the floor, lay out the bedding, and fluff the cushion like it's a ritual, which, in this house, it is. The lady of the house appears. Briefly, glances over the room, and gives you a look that is neither approval nor disdain, just expectation. She adjusts a flower in the water bowl and vanishes again. You exhale. Then you're sent to the garden. Yes, there's a garden. Not for you, of course, but for the lady's afternoon enjoyment. And the garden, you're told, has a sick plant, which is somehow your problem now. You walk the perimeter, tall papyrus, sweet-smelling herbs, a few struggling pomegranate trees. The culprit is a wilting lotus near the fountain. Yellowed leaves, limp petals. You trim the dead bits, water the soil gently, and say a few quiet words. Not to the plant, to yourself, or maybe to the gods. Who knows anymore? Quirky truth. Lotus flowers were sacred symbols of rebirth and divine beauty, but apparently not immune to bad soil and servant-level indifference. Historians still argue whether garden tending by servants was symbolic, functional, or just a way to keep them busy. You'd argue it's all three, and a reason for more blisters. The afternoon passes slowly. The sun climbs high. Your chores stack up like pots in a sink, and your water ration starts to run dangerously low. But then something rare. A gift. One of the older servants, a woman who works the weaving room, presses a folded scrap of cloth into your hand. Inside is a tiny wedge of date cake, dense, sweet, and slightly sticky. No words exchanged, just kindness. You tuck half away for later and eat the rest while perched on the edge of a low wall, watching bees buzz lazily between jasmine blossoms. Evening approaches. You light the courtyard lamps. Your hands know the rhythm now. Oil, wick, flame. Oil, wick, flame. Like breathing. Like prayer. After the evening meal, more lentils, still better than nothing. You return to your mat. Tonight, there's a soft breeze and silence. No guests, no late arrivals, no lost jewelry. Just quiet. You lie down. Your body sinks not into comfort, but into familiarity. This mat, this space, these sounds. You stare at the stars again. They seem closer tonight, brighter. You think about the lotus, the date cake, the woman who gave it to you without asking for anything. Historians still argue whether servant life allowed room for joy. You don't need an argument. You just need this moment. You close your eyes, and this time sleep comes like a friend. You wake before the sky turns pink, before the courtyard stirs, before even the dog has begun his morning patrol for dropped bread. It's quiet, not just in sound, but in feeling. The kind of quiet that wraps around your chest and says, "You made it." Another day. You sit up slowly, every muscle complaining, like old rope in the wind. Your limbs are stiff, but your breath is steady. That's something. The kitchen is still dark when you step inside, just a faint glow from last night's fire embers. You add a handful of dry twigs, blow gently, and watch the flames spark back to life. It's not your task today, technically, but some habits belong to everyone. You warm a bit of water, splash your face, and let the chill run down your spine. The air outside is cool, the sky soft and pale. A breeze brushes past you, carrying the scent of earth ash and wild herbs from the garden. You sweep the path with quiet strokes, not because anyone asked, but because it feels right. The sand parts easily this early, before the sun bakes it stiff, before the shoes of masters and guests press their weight into it. Someone stirs in the laundry hut. Another servant rubs his eyes near the well. The house begins to wake. And so do you. There's no announcement, no applause, no sudden reward for surviving the week. Just the continuation of things. Just another breath. Another set of steps. Another tray to carry. Another lamp to light. But today you notice the light filtering through the linen canopy just a little differently. You notice how it scatters into warm gold on the stone, how the breeze rustles the papyrus leaves in soft rhythms. You notice the way the morning stretches, how the work, though endless, has a rhythm now, how your body, though weary, knows what to do without being told. You think of the temple statue eyes painted to gaze toward eternity. You think of your hands calloused, cracked, and yet somehow steady. You think of the stars above the courtyard, the quiet gift of date cake, the lotus flower, now opening again. This isn't ease. This isn't freedom. But it's life. And somehow you've woven yourself into its pattern. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time. You carry a basket of bread to the outer hall. You place it on the stone shelf. You bow as the steward passes. You feel the sun on your shoulders, and you breathe because you are still here. Because somehow you made it through a day in ancient Egypt. And maybe, just maybe, you'll do it again tomorrow. The fire is low now, crackling softly, like it's whispering ancient secrets to the dark. You've finished your work. The courtyard is still. The dog's asleep again, curled like a comma at the foot of your mat. Your tunic hangs loosely on your frame, dried by the wind and sun and dust of the day. Above, the stars have returned steadfast and unbothered, like silent guardians blinking across the sky. You lie back. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift. The aches of the day begin to fade, not gone, but quieter, like old friends settling beside you. You remember the scent of lotus, the sound of sweeping, the softness of moonlight on the temple stones. This life is hard, but in the stillness, there's a strange kind of peace, a knowing that each day, in all its repetition and strain, you are part of something older than words, a rhythm of flame and water, cloth and clay sun and shadow. You close your eyes. The stars spin gently overhead. The wind hums through the papyrus, and sleep, warm, soft, and silent, pulls you under like the tide of the Nile. For now, you rest. You've done enough. You've seen the gods scrubbed their feet, carried their fires, and swept their silence into shape. Sleep, now servant of the sun. Tomorrow will come again. But for now, you are still. You are safe.